With the rapidly approaching release of 10th edition, I wanted to make a decision about which army I wanted to try and focus on for the initial launch. I spent the majority of 9th edition floating around between a random mix of different armies, building up a massive pile of grey plastic that really isn't getting anywhere. One of the main goals I had for 9th was to make a fully painted 2000 word army, and I never got anywhere close. So I figured with the release of 10th, it'd be a good time to reset and really focus on one particular army. You think I should make this decision a bit closer to the release, maybe when we've got all the rules, all of the data cards, and maybe even all the point values. But this is the internet. It's tradition, nay, a requirement to make massive assumptions and base decisions and opinions on very little actual hard data, and to fight tooth and nail against anyone who dares to challenge those opinions as if they had insulted your entire bloodline. Realistically, I have 4 options here. The first option is the Drukhari. These murder-death-killing pirate space vampires were the thing that actually got me back into Warhammer in 9th edition. They have a great model range, what little there is available. I've got a fairly decent collection, and I do enjoy playing them. Probably the army in my collection that I've had the most progress with, so it would be a good idea to kind of continue that progress. The recently previewed Power and Pain army rule seems actually quite interesting. The 9th edition one was good, but I would always forget little bits of it here and there. The main thing I remember is that turn 2 you can charge and advance, and that was really the only thing I did. At least tried to do. And the small amount of units and weapon previews they've shown do look really cool. The splinter rifles, which used to poison on 4, now poison on 3, but it is only on inventory. But I feel that makes Cabalite warriors have an interesting niche that wasn't really explored in any of my armies. I usually went with witch cult stuff, and I felt like the splinter rifles never really did anything. I really like as well that Cabalites can hold objectives and keep them sticky even if they're within transports. And being able to split a unit of 10 across 2 venoms is really nice, although I actually only own 1 venom, so it doesn't really help me. It does seem like they're leaning a lot more into the glass cannon aspects of Drukhari, which I think is really cool, although I certainly lean a lot more into the glass side than the cannon side. My damage output is more akin to trying to glass someone in the pub after too many to drink than any sort of legitimate futuristic firepower. The second option in my second biggest army is the Thousand Suns. Doing away with the psychic phase is both a blessing and a curse. While it was a lot of fun to have an entire phase dedicated to being able to use really interesting and unique powers and manipulating them in interesting ways, it required a PhD's worth of study and far too long to just end up making a bunch of mistakes anyway, which I guess is part of the course of Thousand Suns. I complain about painting them because of the trim, but they're not that bad. Yeah, the trim is a bit annoying, but they're not the worst things in the world, and they are a lower model count. I can't really think of anything I really need to add to the collection, so I've got all the pieces there, I just need to paint them. Thousand Suns also have Chauncey, my Mutilith Vortex beast, which I absolutely love and should get around to painting, especially with these new rules that look really nice and actually make him much more of a threat and much more unique in the Thousand Suns. It still looks like there's a good amount of unique powers that are going on the data cards, and the Cabal points thing is still there and still allows you to manipulate these spells, which I think is really cool. The unique thing with Thousand Suns, which I think is the main advantage of collecting them and playing them, is you get to explore all these new ways of using your psychic powers in other phases, which I think is a really cool thing. The third and final option for an actual army that I have is the Screaming Ravens, my Raven Guard successor army. The clear advantage for any Space Marine chapter is that the Leviathan box comes with a bunch of new Space Marines, so you get a lot of shiny new toys to try out. And it'll help round out my Space Marine collection, which is currently the smallest of the 3 armies I've discussed. The main issue is, will the Screaming Ravens even exist in 10th? The idea around Screaming Ravens is to use the Raven Guard stratagems around the successor chapters, which are all about hitting hard in melee. Will that even exist? Will there be a detachment like that, or will the detachment be more leaning into the stealth side? I'm sure there's probably a detachment that would fit in what I want to do, but will it still feel like a Raven Guard successor army, or will it just feel like a Space Marine army with extra steps? If the initial launch of the Codex of Space Marines comes with a Raven Guard style detachment, I kind of feel like I have to go with that one, even if it won't fit into the Screaming Raven vibe that I'm going for. Now, the 3 armies I've discussed, this would be the easiest to paint. They're just base coat and black, and then you're done. Without that critical piece of information about the detachments, it's hard to say how I can commit to the Screaming Ravens, which is kind of the whole point of this video being entirely pointless because I don't know anything. But like I said, committing to a stance based on massive, unprovable assumptions, and then arguing and whining about it later when they don't go your way is basically the entire internet at this point. Final option, and the option that doesn't really have any sort of army attached, is just Wildcard, bitches. Yeehaw! I could just go hog wild in 10th. I mean, Leviathan comes with half a box of Tyranids, so I might as well just start a Tyranid army, right? Got a whole box of Sisters I need to build. Let's do a Sisters army. Like with most of the collection I have, as soon as I see something remotely cool, my ADHD idiot monkey brain drop everything and immediately try and just splash out on whatever the new cool thing is, just for that tiny bit of extra dopamine. And then as soon as I hit the purchase button, I immediately get bored, go back to something else, and when it arrives, it just goes onto the pile of shame, never to be touched again, gathering dust for eternity. With 10th edition being a bit simpler and a bit easier to get into, I would actually like to try maybe some tournament play, but that requires an army that's actually painted. The actual strength of the armies in 10th doesn't really matter to me too much. Whether the army I pick is weak or strong, I'm not that good of a player and I don't play enough. I just want to be able to play with a nicely fully painted army, whether it's good or bad. To be honest, it's probably better than my army would be underpowered in 10th, because it means I can have that excuse when I lose all the time. Oh, I can't possibly win. My army is really underpowered. It's not because I'm bad. What armies are you looking to collect in 10th? Has anything piqued your interest in these previews? Let me know down in the comments below what your aims are for 10th, what armies you're going to collect, and what you're looking forward to as the new edition comes out. That will be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.